If you're a builder, remodeler, trade partner, architect, designer looking to grow your business, expand your network, and learn from some of the best minds in the industry, then you need to be at the Contractor Coalition Summit. It will be held November 6th through 9th in Charlotte, North Carolina, and this is not your typical conference. The Contractor Coalition Summit is built around real conversations, real relationships, and real strategies that you can take back and implement immediately. You'll connect with top-performing contractors from across the country, hear from industry leaders, and gain insights on leadership, operations, sales, marketing, culture, profitability, and AI. Whether you're looking to scale your business, improve your systems, or simply surround yourself with people who are pushing the industry forward, this event is for you. We will see you November 6th through 9th, Charlotte, North Carolina. Go to www.contractorcoalitionsummit.com and register and sign up.
One day I was talking to my 22-year-old son, hey, Matt, follow your dreams, do what you want to do. And he looked at me, he's like, well, what about you, Dad? I'm like, oh, crap.
Well, super excited for the podcast today. We have Daniel Preston on. Welcome, Daniel.
Hey, how's it going, Brad? Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, and I'm honored to be here. This is going to be great.
Yeah, I'm super excited. So Daniel is the owner of Deer Creek Custom Homes in Alberta, Canada, and not too far from you, not too far from Phoenix. We got a lot of you, from Calgary out this way.
Well, I may not be very far from you, but I had a foot of snow here a week ago. And so I don't think that's something you guys have to deal with down there. And then, so we had a foot of snow a week ago. 2 days ago, it was plus 20 degrees.
Oh my God.
Celsius, right? So
yeah,
we're Celsius up here. And then tomorrow, we're supposed to get 6 inches of snow again. So
Dude.
It is all over the place up here. And it's like, April 23rd or whatever it is today. So it's, just crazy.
It's funny because, the West, so you think like Utah and Colorado and, Northern California, like they've been pretty limited as far as snow this year. The snowfall was low. But, being in Phoenix, I grew up in San Diego, and you sometimes forget about the weather. Because for me, I'm like, okay, we're outside. I'm swimming with the kids. It's 90 degrees, little tan, worried about getting sunburned. And I'm like, I forget it's still snowing in parts of the country when we're at the pool every day.
And you know what? Like online, a bunch of my friends are in Vancouver, and they're sending me pictures of cherry blossoms happening, and they're in their shorts and t-shirts hiking around. And I'm at a park walking out trying to feed the animals on my farm here. So it's a different world where I am here for sure. But I love it. It's great for sure.
Well, Daniel, I don't know how you have such a big smile. You're dealing with snow in April. You have 8 adopted kids. You started your own business. I mean, apparently you don't want anything easy. So,
you know what? The 8 kids is a joy of my life. Like that's definitely, it's 100%. It's amazing. We love it. It's definitely a choice that we made early on in our marriage with my wife and I. And the kids are amazing, challenging for sure, but amazing at the same time. I mean, you have a big family too, right?
I do. I have 6 kids. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, nice. And how old's your oldest kid?
So my oldest daughter, she just got married. She's 22, and then my youngest is 8. So I have 8 to 22 for the.
So we're in the exact same boat. My oldest is 22, and he's not married yet, but he's looking for sure. And then my youngest he's 9. So I've got four boys and 4 girls.
And they're all adopted.
They're all adopted. Yeah. So my wife and I, it was kind of, when we first got married, we decided very early that we wanted to adopt. It has nothing to do with infertility or anything like that. It's just that we realized there's a massive need out there for adoption and local adoptions, not international. Obviously there's a massive need for that as well.
Yeah.
And so when we first got married, we started talking about, having kids, and we're like, well, we know that later on down the road, we want to adopt. And so why not start that process now? And the other thing too, is we got married. I was married at 18. I was engaged in high school, got married at 18 years old. And then a year later, we brought home our first son, Matthew, from the foster parents' house. So I was 20. I was one of the youngest people in Canada ever to adopt a kid from the foster care system.
Wow.
And so we did that, and then we found out about foster care locally. So immediately we became foster parents, and then we ended up we've had probably 15 to 20 kids come and go from our house as well. Yeah. And of those kids, we've ended up adopting 8 of them. So all of my kids came right from the hospital from day one. We became what's called a safe baby house. So our kids were born addicted to drugs and alcohol. So the mother, made some choices that aren't the best for herself and her baby. And so those children need a specialized care
Mm-hmm.
early on in life. And so we became a safe baby house where we had the training to do that. And so we brought them home from the hospital from day one. And then in Canada here, it takes about a year or two for the court process to go through everything. So those children are in foster care for a year, and then they get adopted out somewhere else. And so we're like, well, we're mom and dad to these kids already. We love them as our own, so we might as well adopt them ourselves. And so we ended up having 8, and 2 of them are biosibs, and then our 4 youngest are biosibs as well. So we love it. It's our ministry, something that we feel called to in our lives, and it's definitely it's a great journey we've been on with that for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate how open you are, Daniel, because in these podcasts, typically, I mean, there's a human element to life, right? To business, to life, to clients, to just you and I. I mean, the thing is, business is very important, what we do in entrepreneurship, but like there is that human touch. And, sometimes these things get personal. And I really admire you because I have a cousin that lives in Utah that I'm very close with. Her dad and my dad are identical twins. So we grew up very close to, my cousins. And, their situation was a little bit different than you. I mean, they had their firstborn, but they couldn't have. She ended up getting cancer, but she worked through that through chemo, and cancer's not an issue, but they couldn't have more kids, and so they ended up doing the foster thing, and they've run. They've had sometimes 5, sometimes 10, sometimes 12. I mean, it's and they've adopted quite a few of them. Some are bio siblings as well. Nice. So similar in a way to you, where I think now they have 9 or 10 right now. And I think more than half of them are adopted. So, but it's a labor of love. I mean, it is, Daniel, there's a lot to be said about going through the foster, and it is needed for sure.
It's one of those things though, is that like, I think a lot of people have blinders on and they don't see it as something that's needed locally. They like, if an average person thinks about adoption, they think about international, they're going to China or South America, something like that. And in Canada, at least, that right now there's 30,000 children ready to be adopted they're sitting in foster care, ready for adoption. And so what we just realized is that we have a heart for it, and we wanted to go for it. And so I've been very open with my story of adoption and foster care, because I feel like it doesn't need to be a second choice. It can be people's first choice. So my wife and I actually started a charity called A Home for Every Child. And what it is it goes out and it educates people. You go into colleges, into universities and schools, and just say, hey, like, this is our story. This is what we did. And you guys, most people think of it as a second, you can't have your own kids, so then you adopt. Well, why not make that your first choice? And we started that, and it took off. We've since stepped down. It's now gone over to somebody else. But we really feel like we have a pretty cool story to tell of our journey, and that it doesn't have to be this hard thing to do. Like when you have your own children, it's difficult too. Like you have your own bio children. No one knows how to do it. Like as a dad, you have no idea what you're doing. Like, let's be honest, right? Like we don't know. And so it's the same with adoption too. It's like, you don't know what you're getting into, and you love on those kids no matter what. And my own personal take on it is that any child that walks through my front door, whether it's for a year or for 18 years or whatever it is, I'm under the authority to follow that child as one of my own. I don't care if it's if they're my own blood or whatever, but they've been given to me. I'm going to pour my love into them as much as I can. And then if they leave, or when they do leave and go somewhere else, they'll have that positive person in their life forever. And that's what we've done. And now that we've done it for 16 years, we have kids that we had as, when they were 3 and 4 years old, who have now reached out to us on Instagram or on Facebook, and they say, hey, like, I remember you. You were my foster dad for a year. I want to connect with you. As we've been able to connect with them and see these now 20, 22-year-olds who have thrived in life, and they remember us from that 1 or 2 years they spent with us. So it's been a really amazing journey for us to do that for sure.
Man, Dan, it's so cool. Are these like closed adoptions, open adoptions? Are there a mix?
Yeah, so it's a mix. It's very, it depends on the child, on the situation for sure. Mm-hmm. Our oldest son has an openness with his parents, or his mom. His dad's passed away, so they're on Facebook. They message back and forth. My 2 other kids, they had no contact, just for safety purposes. And and then my 4 youngest, we have openness with their grandparents and their aunts and uncles. So we want to ensure that our kids, if they want it, they all know everything. We're open book with them on everything. And so we want to make sure that they have that option to talk with them at a safe position. Like every child is different ages, right? So they have to have that certain amount of cognitive ability to be able to talk to these to their their blood family. But we do definitely try to keep it open with them for sure. So yeah, that's a big part of my life for sure is the kids. As you know, I'm sure having your own kids too. So
I know, but Daniel, what amazes me, I love that you said something. You said it can be your first choice, not your second, right? And you said, what's
that's right.
different is, and I think that's a pretty rare, and what led to that? Because the reason I say that, I mean, at 45, which I'm now,
Yeah,
like I have a little bit more life experience, right, than I did at 18. So, having raised kids and, being
yeah,
married and like, having family, seeing adoption, I don't think I really understood a whole lot. I mean, a lot of it's your circle and how you're raised, but I mean,
for sure.
I didn't really have a good understanding. I was probably naive in some ways at 18, like a lot of people. So,
Yeah.
at such a young age for you to get married and realize you want to adopt and you and your wife make this decision. I mean, did you first, how did you have that? And second, did you understand what was going to be entailed? Because, I know here you're speaking about it, but you made this comment. It's really hard raising your own kids. It's hard raising any kids. And so,
Yeah,
there's a
for
labor of
sure.
love raising children. So,
Yeah, so my story is actually starts when I was in grade 4. Actually, believe it or not, so this is way back when I was like 9 or 10 years old. I went to a Christian school, and in that Christian school, they sent out people to orphanages in Uganda, so in Africa there. And I can remember being a kid, and we would always the grade 11, 12s, they'd go on this mission trip to Africa, and I asked my teacher, I said, like, why are they going to Africa? I don't understand. Like, well, what's going on? And she said, well, there's kids in Africa who have no mom and dad, and the seniors are going to go and play with them and have fun with them for a couple of weeks and come back. And I said, well, that's not really fair. Like why don't they have mom and dad? So then this teacher explains adoption to me and the fact that some kids will have a mom and dad. And I said, I remember to this day, I said, Mrs. Meehan, I'm going to be a person that's going to affect the lives of adopted kids or orphan kids. And she looked at me and she said, Daniel, don't ever lose that. And
hmm.
honest to God, from that moment on, it just became a part of it. I knew that I was going to have something to do with adoption or foster care or something like that. And all throughout high school, everybody in my school knew, like, Dan's going to be the guy. He's going to go start an orphanage in Africa. He's going to go to somewhere down south or in South America. And so that morphed into what it is now today. Is I didn't go to Africa, I didn't go to South America, but I've done that here locally within my own community. And then my wife and I, we met. We both worked at a restaurant, a steakhouse called the Keg here locally.
Yeah. Is
And
that the same one that's here? Yeah. We have the
I believe it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah. So the Tipples own that restaurant.
Yeah.
They're a big chain. So her and I were working in the back kitchen, and the first question she asked me, and obviously like, oh, this is a cute girl. She's talking to me. This is great. She's like, well, what do you want to do with your life? And I was, I said, I want to go to Africa and start an orphanage. And she's like, oh, so do I. And
What?
right, our first conversation, honest to God, that was the first conversation we ever had. And it was a godsend for sure. And then we just kind of started dating after that, got engaged, and I was in grade 12, and we were the crazy people who, everyone said we'd never make it. It's going to fail in a year. You guys are insane. And 23 years later, here we are, still married, 8 kids. We followed our dreams of adoption and foster care, and never looked back. So it's been, so it's a long journey, but it was my upbringing for sure. It definitely helped out a lot with that. So, yeah.
I'm actually really glad we started here, and the reason being is because before we brought you on, and before as I was thinking about the podcast and having you on, Daniel, I mean, you have experience working for someone, 26 years experience, and kind of working, as a builder in Vancouver, and start your own. A lot of people, that would be a big endeavor, right? Because there's a lot of comfort, right, of working for a company and having systems and operation and security and monthly paychecks. And, not that there's not stress. I mean, everyone knows there's stress in any role. But to leave that comfort to go on your own, is a lot of responsibility, especially with kids. But I mean, I sit here and listen, I'm like, well, Daniel's like graduated high school, and him and his wife are going to start an orphanage instead. Like, you've been through the adoption and the foster care system, which is, trust me, I don't know how you do it. I see what my cousin
Yeah.
does, her and her husband. I honestly, I get asked a lot. They're like, Brad, how do you manage your schedule? 6 kids and podcasts and AFT and all these things. And then I meet someone like you, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe talk to Daniel.
No. You know what? Like for us, it's our ministry, and we really feel like we're called to it. And the kids, I think the biggest thing for us is whenever a child leaves our house, a piece of our heart goes with that child.
Oh, yeah.
That's the blessing, though, is that we're able to instill our values into them. We're able to give them a positive experience in life, and then send them off. And so it's like I said, they come into my house. It's my son, it's my daughter, and I know that's a bit of a controversial thing to say because it's not technically my personal blood child, but I'm responsible for that person. Like the government or the church or whoever is giving me that kid.
Yeah,
right.
It doesn't have to.
And so I instill it into them as much as I can, and then if they go off in the world and I've been a positive influence on them, that's awesome. And I think that's really cool to see that. And I think a lot of people have asked me as an adoptive parent, well, first of all, a large family, you know this, that you get looked at all the time because you have 6 people walking around you. It's like, holy cow, you're crazy. And so on top of that, being an adoptive parent too, people are like, so you have 8 kids and they're all adopted. Like, are you nuts? And I'm like, yeah, I kind of am nuts. But the question we get asked a lot is like, don't you want to have your own flesh and blood? Like that kind of like, don't you want to have that child with a blonde hair, blue eyed kid?
Yeah.
And when I say to that, I'm like, you know what? I don't care if a kid looks like me. I care that I've been able to instill values into them and make them be like how I am in my values and the way I present myself and the way that I talk and the way that I interact with people. That's more important to me than having blonde hair, blue eyes. Right. And so that's what we try to do with all of our kids. And so far, I'm very proud of my sons. They're out. My one son's in Kelowna, which is about, in between here and Vancouver. It's quite a ways away. And my other son's moved out as well. And they're doing great. So I'm pretty proud of it. Not to toot my own horn, but it's as a dad, once they get out of the house and they're successful, it's a pretty rewarding situation to be in for sure. So, yeah.
Daniel, you should be proud. And it's something that selfishly you should be very proud of. I mean, it's quite a feat. And what I will say, what I do appreciate about just, the humility and openness, the candor there is, life's so much about perspective, right? And you think about what success means to people. I actually enjoy when people ask questions like, what does success mean to you? Because, I think there's just so much perspective, some people, it could be free time. Some people, it could be financial. Some, maybe it's a certain project you've done. Maybe it's parenting, like you've said, to raise these amazing kids and see them go off and flourish, or be a mentor to the younger generation, whatever it is. I think there's a lot of things that you can provide impact in this world. But I think your perspective's unique, that, you see value, even if it's not, you're naturally born, but you see the value that, what you're called to do, and you're living that. So, I mean, you're a great example, Daniel. It's really amazing.
Well, I appreciate that, Brad. Thanks. It's something that we just, I love it. That's all I can really say about it. If anyone listening to this is ever thinking about getting into adoption, dive into it. It's the best thing ever. It's very difficult, but it's amazing as well. So definitely encourage people to do that for sure.
So it may be different in Canada, but before we move on to some of the other like business stuff, what does that take if they want to get into adoption or foster care? I mean, what does that process look like?
Yeah, so it really depends on what route you're going to go. There's a few different routes that you can go on, at least in Canada. I'm not sure how it works in the States. I assume it's probably pretty similar, the way going about it. So internationally is quite the process. You have to get lawyers involved. You have to get an adoption agency, and it can take anywhere from 2 to 5 years or longer in that process. And it's something it's an undefined amount of time. And that's something that is a struggle for most people, is that, when you get pregnant, in 9 months, no matter what, that baby's coming, and you can prepare for it, and exactly what's going to happen, the whole process. But with adoption, it can be 2 years, it can be 5 years, it can be any amount of time. And so basically what people have to do is just get into contact with the adoption agency if you're going internationally, and then just go through the process. It's all paperwork, and there's interviews you have to do, that kind of stuff. And then for the local adoptions, you would go to your children ministry and families, or whatever you call it in the States there, and get in contact with them and just say, hey, like, I want to apply for adoption. And then they will walk you through the whole process at no fees. You don't pay to do it locally in Canada. You do pay to do it if you go internationally because there's all the lawyer fees back and forth
Right.
with that kind of stuff. But locally, it's completely free. And so that's something that I think a lot of people think that they can't do it because they can't afford it, or they think that it's too much of a financial burden. But locally, it's 100% free to do it. It's not for everybody. I'm not going to lie. It is quite the process. They are very intrusive on your life and what you do. But at the end of the day, these kids are in a situation that they didn't ask to be in.
Yeah.
And if you have to go through a little bit of pain yourself through an interview or through whatever, it's a minute amount of inconvenience to you, as opposed to a child that's living in a situation that they don't deserve to be in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't choose to have this brought onto them. They were forced into this. And so if you could provide a safe, stable environment for them, and you have to go through a year or two of paperwork back and forth, it's worth it for sure, right? So yeah, just reach out to your local authorities in whatever region you're in and just ask them. It's not as hard as people think it is, for sure.
So being that you're balancing this, since you're 18, you're going through this, and again, not that you're saying it lightly, because I feel like you've done a good job communicating, but I'm at least familiar enough to know, I don't want to say the chaos, but there is complexity and there is challenge to what you're doing. What made you have the realization and be like, you know what, I'm ready to go on my own, relocate? Because if I understand correctly, you're in Vancouver, now you're moving to Calgary. And so, it's change of location and network and friends and support system and families and community. Yeah. I mean, you're changing all this stuff and you're starting a new business without contacts. I mean, this is a major move, Daniel, in itself, yet alone, a family of 8 kids.
Yeah. So what we did is 4 years ago, we moved from Vancouver to Calgary, which is pretty much the same as going from like Seattle to Montana. Is kind of the same distance there. And so we did that move because we wanted to have acreage property for our kids. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you know the Vancouver market at all, but it is absolutely insane.
It's insane. And it's incredibly expensive. But it's a clean city. It's a great city. I've been there. It is beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a beautiful city. But if you... Yeah. Yeah. Like if you want to buy acreage in Vancouver, you're talking millions, 10 million. It's insane. Yeah. And so when we started looking around, we decided that Alberta was a cheaper option for us. And so we just decided, you know what, we want this better lifestyle for our kids. And so we moved 4 years ago, we moved out here. And I kept my position at the company that I was in. So I was working for a really good custom home builder in Vancouver, and I was the VP of the company. So I running all the back end stuff, doing all the paperwork, the scheduling, all that kind of stuff. And so I was able to do that from Calgary for him in Vancouver.
Work remote.
Yes, I worked remotely, and this is only because of COVID. So when COVID hit, we all went in the office, right? Everyone kind of hunkered down. And we were able to keep the company running smoothly with me in the office and not being on site all the time.
Especially in Canada, where COVID, like you guys totally were
it was
very strict.
And Vancouver specifically was like just
total lockdown.
Extremely strict. 100%. And so that kind of made me realize that if I can do this from my office at home, why can't I do it in Calgary? It's only an hour difference time. Mm-hmm. And so I pitched the idea to my boss, and he thought it wouldn't work ever. And I said, well, I'm going anyhow. Like, I've made my mind. I'm leaving. So you either take this or you leave it. And so what we did is we did like a 6-month trial. And we said, look, we'll try this for 6 months. If it doesn't work out, I'll go my way, you go your way. And we're just, it is what it is. And what we found was that with me in the office in Calgary, it actually helped things because I couldn't be called by a client for like, let's say a client calls and like, hey, my window is a half inch to the left. Can you come look at this on site with me? Mm-hmm. I as a VP drive out there. You have to schmooze with the client, talk with them, and you make them feel all good about themselves. You have to explain the situation that's not actually a half inch out, and then you drive back. So that's 4 hours of your day that's now basically lost. Mm-hmm. But by being in Calgary, people couldn't do that. So I was focused on my work on the back end of things, and people would call. I'd be able to talk to them on the phone, but I was able to utilize my time a lot better in Calgary. And so it actually worked out well for the company. So for 4 years, I did that. I worked remotely. And then I kind of realized that I was comfortable and I had everything I needed. I had my great property. We started a little hobby farm or homestead out here in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. And, I had a really good paying wage, a great boss, everything was great. Like I had it all. Right. I anyone looking at my life would say, Dan, you've got the perfect life. Like you pretty much, you work whenever you want. As long as the company's running smoothly, You got no oversight on you. And I had it all. But I felt like I didn't have enough. It's not I didn't have enough. I wasn't being challenged enough. And I wanted to step out, and I knew that I could do more. And so for about a year, I struggled with that because I was like, you know what, like, do I really want to go on my own? Do I want those challenges and those, all the stuff that comes with owning a company? And for a long time, I just sat back and said, no, I'm comfortable. But then one day I was talking to my 22-year-old son. I was kind of, and, as a dad, you want to coach them into doing what they want to do. Like, hey, Matt, follow your dreams, do what you want to do. And he looked at me, he's like, well, what about you, Dad? I'm like, oh, crap. Like, you're right. Like, I am just sitting back, relaxing, and not following my dreams, because he knew that I wanted to be this builder. Like, Brad, I want to be you. Like, let's be honest. I want the company that's this huge guys building these awesome homes. And so yeah, talking with him, and then the next, I talked to my wife about it. We thought about it a bunch, and we just said, you know what, we're going to dive in and just go for it. So about a week later, I called my boss. I said, dude, I'm going to go do my own thing, and it's something that I've had a lot of people tell me that I should do it in the past, and a lot of people wonder why I never did. And so I guess coaching my son on that, saying go follow your dreams, was a big thing for me. I realized I wasn't following my dream of what I really wanted to do, so I just dove in.
It's incredible. Yeah. As I rewind back a little bit, when you realize the systems you had to implement, you gave the example of, homeowner has a concern. Normally, like most of us, you're probably wasting a ton of time. Yes, there is some customer interaction that's probably beneficial, but outside of that, there's a lot of lost time. Yeah. What were some of the systems and operations you did remotely that helped you realize, hey, this is something I can implement, or at least, that catapulted you when it's time to start, your own custom company?
Yeah, so we use Builder Trends the same way that you guys do, and so having that system in place has been amazing for working remotely, right? Having all the daily logs and all the communication going through one portal definitely helped out on that, because then your site managers can look after things. They send you a report on what's going on, and then remotely I can look through that to make sure everything's good there. And just the communication with the homeowners have been good with the daily logs and those kinds of things. And then being able to work on the back end of a successful company that's already been there, I was able to obviously I took a lot of that information to start my own company, and to port those things over to what I had built with the owner of the company, with all the cost codes and all the schedules, all that kind of stuff. So taking that knowledge of the back end of stuff to start my own was really good. I think a lot of guys go from the tools or from the on-site stuff, and then they try to start their own company. Mm-hmm. But for me, I did the on-site. So I was a site super for a long time for this guy. And so I had the interface with the clients. And even before that, like my background is a carpenter. I was a framer. I had my own framing company. I framed houses for a long time. I framed multifamily homes, so the high production stuff. And then I got into the project management side of things on site. So having the on-site experience and then also the back end experience for the 4 years really helped me see kind of the whole picture of the company. And so I was able to kind of take that and feel more confident in starting my own company by myself. Obviously, I didn't realize all of the stress that comes along with having a company of your own. And, like, are we going to get the next build? Do I have enough work for next year? All those kinds of questions that I didn't think about as an employee, because it's just, I was had a paycheck, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't something I ever thought about. But now my wife, she's like, well, Daniel, like, what about 2027? Like, sure, we got builds now, but like, what's happening next year? I'm like, I don't know. I guess we have to figure it out. And so that's something that we didn't realize the stress would be there for sure. So I'm learning about that. So maybe that's something you can help me out with. Is what do you guys do? I mean, obviously you guys are huge now, but looking back at when you were in my stage, because obviously you were there at one point. What did you do to put in place for your family and your own mindset? Like, how did you manage that side of things, the stress of what's coming up next, or what happens when this job finishes?
It's a really good question, Daniel. And I think anyone that's an entrepreneur or business, especially a fee-related business like we are, I mean, you're always concerned, okay, I landed this job, but what's next? And, I'd say the best example I had, I'm old enough, probably like you are, in the States, we had the housing crisis back in 2008, 9, 10, right? And that, that affected a lot of countries and, around the world. But I remember at the time, 2005, 6, 7 was just this boom, like, it's not stopping, building everywhere. Like no one had any care in the world of what was happening. And at the time I was working for a company, that a few hundred employees, we were doing this incredible resort, and I remember like we were like just knee deep in construction. I mean, at this point, it's hundreds of millions of dollars of construction, commercial and residential.
Crazy.
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
company's massive. They have tons of work, and the leads are coming in nonstop. And I remember the owner of the company's like, I need another job, like I need a hole in my head. And I remember him saying that, yeah, in the job site trailer. And so what happened was some of these amazing projects were coming through and they weren't chasing them because we got plenty of work, and they were kind of overlooking a few of these, kind of looking at some big trophy ones, some big developments coming down the pipeline. Well, we all know what happened. 2008 happens, the stock market crashes, and all of a sudden that faucet turned off. And what I saw is the company, and it wasn't, which happens to a lot of us, you have that phone that's ringing, you have the fire to put out, you're dealing with the crisis every day, and we were kind of dealing with that. And so what ends up happening is you forget to start to push on business development and marketing, and in the busiest times is when you should be marketing the heaviest. And so the pipeline wasn't full. And what I saw, again, a lot of people were impacted by this. No one has a crystal ball, but had they have done a little bit more business development, yeah, maybe instead of going from 300 employees to 30, maybe they went to 80, or maybe they had enough to get by. And so that had a huge impact on me, because when I started my company, like that's probably the biggest stress I have at AFT is how do I keep enough projects and workflow and keep my team busy? And, it's a really tough thing to balance. But what I will say is I've never stopped marketing and networking and advertising. So I think that's one of the things I've done that doesn't give me total peace of mind, but I know that it's something that I won't ever let go, because I've seen what happens when the economy changes like it has. It's been pretty slow the last year and a half for a lot of builders, around North America and the country.
Yeah. Well, I'm hearing that as well. That a lot of guys in Vancouver that I know, they're saying that it's the new projects are slowing down, and then thankfully in the Calgary area, a lot of the people in Canada from Vancouver and Toronto, the big cities, they're actually coming to Calgary because they're realizing that their bang for their dollars gets you a lot more here, and so that's where I'm trying to capitalize on that. And I liked what you said about the marketing thing too. Is that's something that obviously as a brand new company, I've pushed really hard on the Instagram stuff, the social media, trying to get my name out there. And but one thing I realized is that when I started my own company, I knew I needed to have a coach or someone that was going to help me out on the things. And that's because in my mindset, like if you look at any great athlete, every person at the top of the game, like Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, all the guys from our time, that when we were kids, right, they all had these coaches. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to invest and get myself a group or some sort of a coach that's going to help me out on that. And I think that's been a huge asset for me, is having that person I can bounce ideas off of. And then I also found it really interesting is I reached out to all the big builders out there, like yourself, Brad. Like I reached out to you and said, hey, like I asked you some questions, and I was very surprised that people actually got back to me and they say, hey, like Dan, this is great. Like you're starting to think, I'll help you out. Like what do you need to know? And so social media has been a huge thing for me, because it enables you to have that broad reach. I can talk to tons of people who are successful, and the majority of guys, they want to help. And I think that's something that in my mind, I thought that these big guys, they never even think to talk to me. Like I'm just Dan from Alberta. Like they're not going to care who I am. But I found anyone that's successful, they really want to help the new guys. And I really appreciate that about yourself and about other guys in the industry too. It's such a great asset to have with you. All the knowledge that you guys bring to the table, and the stuff that your social media is pumping out too, is helping out us young guys. I mean, I'm 41 years old, so I'm not young anymore. But
you're young.
We're young at heart, at least. My son tells me I'm an old man, so it's all good. But I like that there's that community that on social media. I think it's such an important key to success. And I find that there's a lot of good aspirational stuff on there, a lot of cheerleaders on social media. So that's been a huge asset for me for sure.
I love that because, I don't think I realized that either, being young when I started my company, and you touched on this, Daniel, is that, you may have understood building, like you understand, how to run the field and pre-con, you understand how to estimate, you understand, how to do the back end and warranty and stuff like that. But it's, job leads, it's relationships, it's, cash flow, it's, the overhead, AP and AR, all the things that come, have an accurate whip and making sure you're paying the appropriate taxes. There's a
Yes.
lot that go into running a company, and then but what's tough is like construction is such an interesting industry because it's primarily small business. Like you, like Luke, Daniel, me. I mean, you and your wife, you have
Yeah.
kids, like you're running your buddy, or you're running your company. You're doing this together. A lot of my trades are this way. It's them and their wife, or them and their spouse, or them and their employees. And everyone runs their company different. Are they lump sum? Are they cost plus? Are they and so you're dealing with so many different variables that it's really hard to have a good understanding of what's the best way to run my business. But where I do appreciate social media is, like you said, early on, there were a lot of builders I reached out to that, lack of a better word, took me under their wing, gave me advice. And I really appreciate that. It's something that I will always do because it's just kind of my nature. But, I also see the value in like this. I mean, Daniel, this is an hour we're going to spend together, and I'll leave this like, hey, I can't wait to see Daniel again. I mean, there's a friendship that's built through these conversations and communication that otherwise we wouldn't have if it wasn't. You and I have never connected if 30 years ago through a fax machine.
Oh, for sure, 100%. And that's a cool thing too, is that like you can talk to people all over the world on Instagram or on social media, right? Like I've talked to people in Australia, and they build completely differently than we do here in Canada, right? And even people in Europe, they say that wood frame is not the best way to do it. And we have that debate back and forth on why it's good and why it's bad, and just so yeah, it's such a cool situation that we're in, and I think it's a very unique time that we're in here too, with with AI coming into the world now too. I'm trying to build the company around that as well. So is that something you guys are implementing into your company? Is like AI is, everyone's talking about AI. It's like it's going to take your jobs away. I don't think it is going to take our jobs away. I think we have to morph what we're doing with our jobs. And so as I'm starting to build up my company, I'm trying to incorporate AI into it. So I'd be interested in knowing what you guys are doing on your side of things with the AI side.
No, that's a really good question. So I actually just had a podcast on this, and
Okay.
yeah, that'll be coming out pretty soon, just before yours. But what's interesting about AI is, in some industries, AI can replace. Like we are seeing that in some. But the reality is, for most industries and most of us, you have to be someone who understands how to use AI so that you're not replaced, right? Like,
For
someone
sure.
like you, right, Daniel? We probably won't be replaced by AI robots, but we need to understand how to use it so we aren't replaced by someone who does know how to use AI. And so, being in the trades, blue collar, we're a long ways from robots install my cabinetry and pour my
Yeah.
foundation. But the reality is, when you look at, admin and legal and marketing and social media and contracts and scope and estimates, there's a lot of things that can hopefully eliminate a lot of human error and make things a little bit quicker, which we're seeing. And so I think that everyone should be looking at AI. There's different aspects that we've been utilizing it in all the things I mentioned, legal for sure, contract negotiation. We've been using it in, scope writing, and we've been using it even like permit checklist stuff with the cities, going through plans and estimates. Of course, we're not bidding off what AI tells me, but because we have a database, but you have reference points that you need to be using that AI can run very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what I'm trying to do is, like, obviously as a young company, my overhead is very, very low at the moment. And I'm going to have to start hiring people. Or do I hire people, or do I figure out how to have AI look after some of the things that people wouldn't necessarily do? Or that they wouldn't. Yeah. I'm trying to figure that out as a new company. Like, will AI replace people? I don't think it will in the long term, but I think there's value there with it. So I'm trying to figure that all out. And so, yeah, I'm very interested in that whole space of things. And it's, something I'm trying to figure out. So,
yeah. Well, Nathan Spearing, I mean, he's like, his podcast is really good because he talks about that. He's like a singleton, ex-military guy, and, one man operator. And so he's really used it to take, when you're a small business like you, I mean, your day's consumed in the field where you're trying to make money, but then you still got to get estimates done. You still got to get paperwork done and bills out. And, and that's where he's utilized AI. For you, moving into, again, you were able to work remote and maybe build some relationships, but how did you start building a network? How did you build clientele? How did you get job leads? Like, how did you start building the enterprise?
Yeah, so what I did is, when I moved to Calgary here, there's a group here. It's called Builders and Brews, and what it is this local guy. Byron is his name, from Brookwright Homes. He realized that the industry has to have a space to be able to meet up and talk, and so he started this thing where basically in the Calgary area there's a whole bunch of craft breweries here, and so he utilizes those. He rents them out, and then he just has trades and suppliers and architects, designers come, and they just talk, and they have a dinner together. And so I started going to that group very early when I first moved here, just to meet people, because I didn't know anybody in the Calgary area. I knew, tradesmen talk in a different way than, your lawyers do or your accountants do. So I had to be in that space to just to get friends, to be honest. I wanted to be able to get to know people. So I started going there, and it was a great space that I just found some good friends there. And so I started networking there, but not with the mindset that I was going to start my own company. It was more just to get to know people. And then from doing that, when I started my company, I had a good base of, I knew the guys I liked. I knew the electricians that I liked to talk with, and the plumbers and that kind of stuff. So I was able to draw from them. And then actually the story of how I got my first builds. So my company has officially been in business for 6 months. At this very moment, I've got 6 homes under contract worth about $8 to $9 million worth of build costs. And that's crazy. Like, for a brand new company to have that.
Yeah.
And
amazing.
Here's the better part about it is that I live 2 minutes away from the street that all 6 homes are being developed on. Wow. And so it's absolutely amazing. So what happened there was a good friend of mine locally here, his whole family basically bought lots on the same street. And the dream was that one day they'd all be able to live on the same street together as a family. And so they're putting all their projects out to tender. And my friend, he said, Dan, like, I know you're starting your company. This is going to seem crazy, but why don't you put your name in the hat and just see what happens? He's like, each family member can pick whoever they want for the builds. It doesn't have to all go to one guy, but let's just put your name in the hat. So I did that. I put my name in there, and they all, 6 of them, chose me to build a house for them, and that's out of 6 other builders. So, yeah, it's crazy, and so it definitely catapulted me from nobody to all of a sudden having these 6 amazing, and they're not just your spec houses. These are like nice, not your level homes, but they're definitely up there in value of homes that we're doing here. And so I was able to walk through with them from basically a clean slate. So we had a 2-acre lot. We found a designer locally that we're working with. And so right now we've got 3 that are under construction, and we got 1 that's almost done the design phase. And the other 2 are coming up in the next year or 2 here. So it kind of catapulted me from nothing to something pretty quick. And it definitely ruffled some feathers locally here with some of the builders. It's a pretty tight-knit group of builders here. So when they saw this new guy all of a sudden coming in, taking these big builds,
the work, yeah,
it definitely it ruffled some feathers in good ways and in some bad ways. So some guys were pretty upset, and I was like, well, I put my name in the hat, and I gave a discounted price for sure to get the jobs, because for me, I lowered my cost. It's a cost plus contract I have with them, and I lowered the cost that I knew other guys were at, because I knew that getting these 6 builds would give me credibility. Right, it would give me my foot in the door. I'd be able to get pictures, and my portfolio would get out there pretty quickly. And so it's the grace of God. I stepped out there and went for it, and I'm very blessed to have it. Now, on the flip side, I've realized I probably should charge more on the houses, but it's the school hard knocks, right? Everyone's got to take that first little bit, and any builder that has 6 homes on one street, that's worth almost $10 million would be ecstatic, let alone a brand new guy just starting up. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's very commendable. But the reality is, you look back, and I'm sure there's going to be some lessons learned on cost and what your true cost is to run it. And ideally, you're going to do some, autopsies at the end and kind of do some analysis and see where you ended up. But the reality is, even though you have value, you had 26 years of experience. You have, before you started your company, many years. I think it was like 26, right? If I'm not mistaken, but you've had a lot of experience. And so, but the reality is, you have to build it under your own company and name. And sometimes you have to have a lost leader. I mean, in sales, that's a common theme. You have a lost leader. You have to get your name, your sign up, your reputation, and then it'll steamroll in. But you're smart in the sense, Daniel. And I think this is where a lot of people, even for me, I mean, the one negative thing about social media is there's a lot of comparison, right? So you could look at someone and, overnight success, 20 years in the making, but the reality is it takes time to go on that journey and start building up and then getting to the point. And one of the valuable lessons I think for me as an early entrepreneur is, maybe day one, you want to do that $25 million build, right? But the reality is you may not have the experience and you could get that, be awarded that, and then fall on your face because you don't perform, which can end up bearing you. So there's something to be said to working up and gaining experience in systems and bettering those and, learning so that way you're more prepared when those opportunities do come, so that when they do come and that door is kicked open, you know that you're going to perform.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think the hardest part that I'm finding for myself, and it's probably just my own mindset, is that I feel like I'm the new kid on the block, and I feel like I'm unexperienced. But you're right. Like I do have the experience of, not necessarily my own company, but I have the experience of running, jobs, all that kind of stuff. And I think your mindset has to change as an owner. And I can do this. I have experience. I am new to this area, but I'm not new to building in any way. Like, I can build a house just fine. Like, I have no problem with that. And so I'm definitely learning a lot from people like yourself and the coaches I have and all those kinds of things. But it's a grind. Like it's a mental grind for sure. I didn't anticipate that part of it, is the laying there at night thinking to yourself, like what's going to happen next year? Like, I've never had that thought process really, because I've always had a paycheck, right? I've always had a 9 to 5 job, and it's been fine. It's been great. And so that's, and my wife too, that's what I struggle with is her being stressed out about it. I don't get stressed very easily. But seeing her stressed is definitely something that has been weighing on me as a dad and father and husband, trying to make that go away for her. So yeah, it's just I got to find that next job and just have faith that I'm going to be able to do it, and just keep going. Right? What else can you do?
How have you found opportunities to expand your relationships as far as vendors and trade partners, subcontractors? Like, how have you built that network?
Yeah, so I had this great idea of what I'm calling the long table dinners. And so what I'm doing is I'm renting out a room in a restaurant, a nicer restaurant, and I'm inviting people within the industry. So I've done a few now where I had two designers come out, an architect, a high-end furniture making company came out, and then 2 other builders as well that I respect in my industry, and creating a space where we can just kind of talk and not talk sales, but just get to know each other on a personal level, and go and so there's actually a rule at the table where you're not allowed to talk about your business or hand out any business cards. It's kind of what we say. It's there's no sales pitches. It's just, how are you as a person, like your life, like. One guy's getting married. So we talked about his wedding, what's coming up there. I talked about my kids. They talked about their kids. I think building relationships and having a real life conversation is super important, because people don't build or do work with people that they don't know and like, right? So I'm trying to get my name out there, trying to get just relationships there that are actual true handshakes or a hug, where it's like, hey, like I can go up to the designer, give him a handshake, and I know who that person is. I know their life story, and they know mine. And so I think that's the difference between being very superficial and being real with people. And so I'm trying to do that. And so far, I think it's been working pretty well. We'll see if the proof's in the pudding. A year from now, I'll let you know in 2027 if I have more builds. But I think it's that's the way to do it, is be true, relational, and get to know people on a real life basis. Is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, we kind of touched on this early on when I mentioned there's a human element. And what's interesting, we just before this podcast, Daniel, this is typical construction. We have a project where I won't even say what the scope is, but the trade that did the install, it's not performing. And the client's upset, and it's, one of those things where, the attorneys are not brought in, but it's going to get to that point if it's not resolved.
Okay.
And so we brought them in, and I had not met the owner of this company before. They came in, and some of these are just curiosity to kind of see, if they're coming in defensive, if guns are blazing, if they're going to like, hey, no, we want to get this right. And the meeting ended up being great, and they were on board. And the comment I made to them, I look back at my career, and relationships are everything. For me to have a good relationship with you, Daniel, and say, hey, Daniel, even if it's my fault, we're behind schedule. We made this mistake. Can you help us? There's a thing about communication without just saying, Daniel, you need to be here. I need to be done. Be here Monday. But
Yeah.
to have that call and be able to just have credibility because you have years of experience working together and you both want the same thing. And where I'm going is I told this trade, I said, look, some of the best relationships I have with some of my vendors are when things go wrong because they always do. And then how do you step up to the plate? Do you resolve it or do you run and blame everyone else? And the ones that run, like, I don't work with them again. And the ones that stand behind the work they do. And so what I do like about your long form dinners, at least that setup is you're getting to know people. And, it's a lot harder when I know, Daniel, you're married and you have 8 kids, there's actually a human behind that instead of just a transaction,
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm trying to do is make it where you actually understand the person's situation. And it's just relationships are everything. And I think with going back to the AI thing a little bit here is I think a handshake and a hug is going to become more valuable than it was in our time. I think because there's so much transactional things going on that I think a handshakes and your word is going to become even stronger than it ever has before. And I think that's something that no one can take away. Like no one can take away your integrity as a person, and no one can take away your handshake. Like it should be the most important thing is that you say you're going to do what you're going to do, and you do it no matter what. And so that's what I'm trying to build on is honesty, integrity, and it's definitely very important to me to be able to, at the end of the day, look at a client or look at my trade and say, I honored what I said was due. And and you can't say anything about it because it's always what I'm going to do no matter what. So that's super, super important for me. So
what's keeping you up at night?
Honestly, right now it's getting more work. I'm not going to lie. Being a new company, it's just, I don't think, so like I said, I don't get stressed out. I think my wife is more stressed out, but I think if I'm being honest, it's just getting that next build. But it's the kind of thing, Brad, like, one phone call and the whole year is set, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like all it takes is one person to call you. They like you. They want you to build the house, and you're set for the next year. So I'm not too worried about it. The thing about the Calgary area is that we have a 7-month window to build houses, really, because when the ground freezes here, we can't dig. Right? Or it costs us way, way more to dig a home. Mm-hmm. So basically, as of November, any new construction stops until this time of year. Like literally, we had the ground just melted like a couple weeks ago here, and so you can't start a build in December like you can on the West Coast, right? You would never even think about doing that. And so we're trying to think of how can we get some started up this year in like September, October kind of thing, get it out of the ground before the winter hits and be able to have us carry that through to 2027. So, I think that keeps you up at night. And then my kids, obviously, they keep us up at night too sometimes. But that's just life, right? So we love it. What keeps you up at night? Like what, like as I see you guys on Instagram, I see you guys on there. You're just, everything's great, everything's awesome. But the reality is, you must have some negatives happening with you guys as well, right? Like, let's be honest and raw here. Like, what is that what does Brad Leavitt sit up and stew about?
Yeah, I think we're very similar in the sense that, I'm always stressed about business development, leads and projects, and really carrying them through. I mean, people see the projects we work on are pretty complicated, and they take a lot of years of design and a lot of years of pre-con and a lot of years of estimating. And so what stresses me out is price, because prices aren't coming down. And, you could be in design for 2 years. So by the time you price it out, pricings change, and sometimes expectations change and budgets don't line up. And now can I get this project off the ground? So I'm always stressing about the jobs that are coming in, and then the ones that are in, can we get them off the ground and get them started, because of all the variables. And there's so many more variables that we could go into, but that consumes a lot of probably my stress, if you will. But I think there's still the reality of, and I'm just going to speak work life, not personal life, because I think there's always personal stuff with kids, which we could,
for sure,
you touched on. But I think from a personal side, do I have opportunities for growth for my team? Are they happy? Am I keeping them on? Do I have the right culture? Are we performing? You look at, I'd say in general, anyone that works with AFT, our clients are like over the moon, but that's not always the case. And so in some of these relationships that go sideways, like what led to that? What failure do we have in our system and operation? And sometimes we have clients that are frustrated, and, I've often taken the stance, I'm not worried about who's right, but getting it right. So even if we're not at
That's
all
good.
at fault. Like, it's like, we just want to get it right. And so how do we rebuild that relationship? And they don't all work out, but where I can appreciate it is if we've had a couple that, seem to be going south, and, through communication and hard work and performing and showing up, like, those relationships turn in a positive way. And, that stuff is the builder, that keeps us going. But sometimes a bad client, man, it'll eat your life. It'll eat your
Yeah.
well-being. So
So far, all my clients are great. I mean, I've only got 6 as of now, but they've all been awesome. And I'm not looking forward to that bad client at all. But I guess a question for you: if you see a job going sideways, what's the best way that you found to turn it around and nip it in the butt right away? Is there some magic sauce that you've figured out that helps that? Is it communication, like you just said, just over communicating?
yeah, this took me some time to learn, but this just happened recently. I think, in the past, I would have a call with a client, and I have one specific example. This project by the end did not finish out like it should have for a lot of reasons. I think, look, I'm going to be biased because it's me and my company, but I
Yeah,
would say that 80% of it was not us, but we're taking all of it because we're the builder.
yeah,
Regardless, when the client called me, I said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry we're at this point. I'm sorry we didn't deliver. I'm sorry that we didn't perform. And I didn't once bring up, well, this scenario, or this didn't happen, or this didn't show up, or this decision was made. There was no deflection. It was just 100% accountability that, when you hire AFT, this is what we should deliver, and we didn't. And we should have communicated better. We should have done this. And then, I listened to what their concerns were. We addressed them. We did a manpower change. And, is the relationship perfectly saved yet? No, but I feel like it's on the right track. We've had great communication. I know we're going to get there. And, but at the end of the day, it's just, I've learned that, what, I had a trade partner that taught me this. They could have easily pointed at my superintendent. They could have pointed at my coordinator. They could have pointed at the architect. Like, it was not all their fault, and this is years ago.
yeah,
And they just took the stance of, like, no, this like, we'll make it right. Like, the relationship's important to us at the end of the day, whether you ever hire us again or not, doesn't matter, our reputation. And I think people appreciate that. A lot of people just want to be heard,
yeah.
and they get tired of the contractor that doesn't listen to them. They just want people to listen.
Nice. That's some great advice. That's really good. That's awesome.
So what do you do for fun, Daniel?
Well,
I mean, you don't have any free time, so.
no, I love, so we, like I was saying earlier, we have a homestead kind of a property here. So it's kind of funny, actually. So when we moved here, we bought this house. So coming from Vancouver to Calgary, I didn't know the area at all. We bought a house in an acreage estate area. We didn't realize that the area that we bought in is a very posh kind of area. We thought we were just buying out in the countryside. So we pull in here with our 8 kids and chickens and sheep and cow. And all of a sudden, my neighbor's he's a lawyer, and my other guy's a doctor, and there's just all these guys. So we're definitely the oddballs out. And so I love going out, feeding the sheep, milking the cow, getting the chickens out, and getting the eggs. I love the gardening side of things. I find that going out in the nature it's very peaceful. You leave the phone in the house. You just go out there and just garden for a bit, grow your own food. The kids come out and help out with that kind of stuff. So that's definitely a passion of mine for sure. Is the garden, the farm side of things. I love hiking. We're here. The Rocky Mountains are literally 30 minutes away. You know what Banff is up here in Canada, right?
Oh yeah.
So yeah. So we go there. Lake Louise, so those kinds of things. So yeah, we definitely enjoy being outside. I'm a coffee fanatic. I'm a coffee addict for sure. So I like sitting down, having coffees, having conversations with people, and I'm very what's it called? Not extra. I'm very extroverted, so I love talking. I love conversations, getting to know people. And then the kids, right? Kids sports and kids dance and taekwondo and all this kind of stuff. I love seeing my kids flourish on what they enjoy doing and just getting down to it with them. So, as a dad, it's just as a parent, your life is around your kids, and that's the number one thing, is keeping them happy and keeping them going for sure. And I do enjoy social media. I enjoy the side of it where it's artistic. You kind of have that the fun with it, the conversation you have there as well. So yeah. And
Well,
I
yeah,
should enjoy working out, but it's something I'm working on for sure.
it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Well, but you do it all the time. I mean, you're fit, and you had that. I think you had an
I had
episode
a
of heart
stroke.
attack or something
I
like
had a
that. Yeah,
stroke. I had a
stroke.
stroke.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that changed up your mindset. That right? Is
It
that
did.
what's?
I think the stroke definitely, I don't want to say it's balanced me because everyone's like, Brad, your schedule is too busy. You're going to have another stroke or heart attack. But there are some changes I've made, not many, but some, at least enough where I feel a lot healthier now, so,
Yeah,
which is good.
nice.
But life's tricky. The thing is, Daniel, like at the end of the day, you have kids, you have a family, you have responsibilities. I mean, look, some of us are going to live life to the fullest. Like there's nothing, like it just is what
Yeah,
it is at this point. But no, Daniel, you've been an incredible guest. I've enjoyed the conversation. I really enjoyed the vulnerability of, your role and what you've done to give back to your country, society in general. Human nature is
thanks, man.
impressive what you've done, you and your wife, and I commend you for that. So for those listening, how can they find you?
So yes, on I think all platforms I'm on at least. So it's just Daniel Built is my Instagram handle there, and then I've done the same thing on YouTube. I don't really do it very much. TikTok is something that I probably should get onto, but I hear it's a beast to get onto that thing. So, but yeah, and then deercreekcustomhomes.ca on the website. So definitely reach out. I'd love to talk. And if you're a designer, architect, trade partner, let's just get the conversation going. Just have some fun with it too. So, Brad, I really appreciate you and everything that you're doing on social media, and just I love you're helping out guys like you and Paul. I talked with Paul, your main
Yeah.
guy there.
Well,
Him
yeah.
and I have connected. He has a big family as well. I just wanted to just commend you guys for what you're doing. You're helping out the younger guys, the new guys coming in, and so thank you for that too. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you.